How we doing, folks? Your host Moose here on the Pitt Panthers Football Network as we welcome you back to our Season 7, Week 15 NCAA recap show and Conference Championship Week preview. Obviously, Week 15, not a lot of action. Most teams on a bye, finishing out their season waiting for their bowl placement, but there were some big games. Army did beat Navy 24-21. Louisiana knocks off South Alabama 47-27 to win the Sun Belt, and Cincinnati beats UCF 45-23. Another dominant victory from the Bearcats and another huge performance from AC Reese. Jaden Maxwell Jr., the UCF quarterback, did have a nice game. Very talented player, and one that will be interesting to see how the offseason goes for him. He had a good season, but UCF still 6-6 even with him in the lineup. Reese had an incredible game. Dustin Wolf, 2 touchdowns, 9 receptions for Cincy. Now they're going to have to wait and see how things shake out around the NCAA as far as do they have any chance to get back into the college football playoff in spite of their tight loss to Tulane. But Maxwell Jr., 3 touchdowns, very talented player. And it's one of those things that he's on a not great UCF team. They're still in the American. Maybe if they got to move to the ACC or the Big 12, then he'd want to stay. But with that, maybe he doesn't want to play in a Group of 5 conference. So it'll be interesting to see. We do schedule a visit here, or did schedule a visit, I should say, in Week 15 for both Avery Daly and Zach Triplett, some of the defensive backs that we're interested in. So that did happen over this week as well on our own front. So that's, we can see kind of the final targets of our recruiting board. We may, once we get to off-season recruiting, surf through and see if there are any interested players that we could throw points at potentially. But with so few scholarship opportunities available, I think it's one of those things where the players that are on our board is who we're going to finish out the season with, because we're only going to sign maybe 2 or 3 more guys at most. I don't even know if we have the scholarship availability for that. But we can see heading into the offseason, Triplett, we have the lead on him. Avery Daly, we have the lead on as well. But Triplett is in a tight battle both with Tennessee and Penn State. So that's going to be where a lot of our points likely will go. We got a few players that are locked out, some really talented guys we missed out on. And Cameron Hale, tight end, big body, kind of reminds me of Caleb Cannon, who just graduated last season. Just another guy that could grow into playing time because we don't have a ton of tight ends on the roster. We're losing one this offseason. We don't have one in this class. So we thought maybe we'd throw some interest at him, but we do miss out. So that'll be a target and a priority for next season. But AC Reese wins NCAA Player of the Week here in Week 15. 248 passing, 64 rushing, 5 touchdowns in the win over UCF. Great season for him. And heading into Conference Championship Week, we can see he's not on the Heisman race. He's not going to have another game to have a chance, but Taylor Savage, Calicolio, players of that nature are right in the mix for it. And now it is Conference Championship Week. I mean, what a lineup we have here. We have some incredible games. We'll let you get a look at those. We're going to preview each one, and we will go through the winners of every conference, including the conferences that don't have conference championship games, just to give you an update around the universe here and see where things stand heading into the most important conference championship week we've seen for ourselves, coming off our first ever undefeated regular season in this dynasty. But some really marquee matchups. It's interesting that Nebraska-Penn State's the one that gets game of the week, the little star, when you literally have number 2 Pitt, number 3 Clemson facing off. I mean, 2 versus 3 battle is insane. If this was still the BCS era, it'd be winner take all to get to the title game. It's not. Obviously, with the college football playoff, both teams still technically are in the mix for the playoff if they can, play a tight game or see how it goes. That's one of those things where if we lose to Clemson, you never want to think of it in this negative fashion. Could we stay in the mix? Tough to say. I mean, Cincinnati's 11-1, 7-1 in conference. They lost to Tulane, who had a good conference season, but tough season in the non-conference. They're not even going bowling. Their bowl was the victory over Cincinnati. I mean, the Bearcats have looked so good that if a lot of results fell their way, I feel like they could still be in the mix. Oklahoma, out of the Big 12, wins the Big 8 division that has basically all the non-Texas teams that are in the Big 12. Really good season for them. Oklahoma State was their closest challenger. Obviously, they basically had a play-in game to the title game in Bedlam in their rivalry week, and Oklahoma came out victorious. They're going to take on a Houston team that beat Baylor earlier in the year. That gives them the tiebreaker 8-4 overall, 5-3 in conference, so makes things a little bit easier on Oklahoma, looking to defend their title and get to 12-1 to make it into the playoff. In the Big Ten, Penn State wins a very competitive top of the East Division. Indiana and Michigan going 7-2. Indiana, huge performance by them this season. They were fantastic. Really, really great year for them. That they can probably build on. Ohio State's still 9-3, Michigan's still 10-2, Penn State though 11-1. They just won the close games that they needed to. Nebraska, with their victory over Iowa in their rivalry game at the end of the season, ends up winning that head-to-head tiebreaker, gets them to 6-3 in conference, 9-3 overall, and they'll take on a Penn State team that they've already played once this year and lost to. So kind of adds a little bit more intrigue there, getting the rematch. In Conference USA, Western Kentucky 10-2, 6-2 in conference. They're going to take on 7-1 in conference UTSA. The Roadrunners having a very good year for a one-star program. Nice bounce back for them, and that'll be a fun game there. Independent-wise, BYU 9-3. Notre Dame went 8-3. I forget, you'll see it when the results come through, but there's one other team that also only played 11 games. We'll just say they had a game canceled for weather, and they just didn't need to replay it because neither team really had any championship aspirations. But in the MAC, I mean, you have 10-2 Buffalo going to take on 12-0 Ball State. That's going to be an incredible matchup. Ball State looking to go 13-0. Their schedule is so bad that there's no chance that I could see the Cardinals having any ability to make a push for the playoff. But still, undefeated season would get them into a New Year's Six bowl, so that would be a great matchup. In the Mountain Division, Boise State has a great year. Air Force has a really good year as well, but Boise does get the championship bid. And then Fresno, 5-3, ends up winning the tiebreaker there and gets themselves into the conference championship game. In the Pac-12, Washington's been incredible all year, 8-1 in conference, 11-1 overall, so really good season for the Huskies. That's going to get them to the top of the North Division. Team to really note there, Oregon went 6-6, really awful year for the Ducks. We'll see if they bounce back next year. And then UCLA ends up winning the head-to-head tiebreaker with USC in, again, the final week of the season, rivalry week. They end up getting the Pac-12 bid because of their victory. In the SEC East, you have 8-0 in conference. South Carolina 10-2 overall with their loss to Clemson in rivalry week. They're going to get into the SEC championship game, looking to play spoiler against an undefeated and dominant LSU team that's 12-0, 8-0 in conference. This team might be better than the 2019 LSU team with Burrow that won the national title here in this dynasty. They were unbelievable, and I could see this LSU team being even better with the way that their offense has looked this season. So that's a crazy matchup. I think LSU could lose and still make the college football playoff. I think they would, to be honest. I don't think a loss would take them out at all. Louisiana wins the Sun Belt. Really good years for first-year programs. South Alabama, App State, Coastal Carolina, they all had really good years and finished near the top of the conference, so impressive there. But let's now get into it. Conference Championship Week. We're going to take a look at every matchup, some more in-depth than others, obviously, and kind of preview the action this weekend here. Buffalo, 10-2 overall, taking on Ball State. Ball State, their offense is incredible. Their defense has been very good. Obviously, like I said, they haven't played anybody, though, so those rankings have to be taken with a grain of salt. They're very good rankings for the competition they're playing. They run the ball incredibly well. Justin Martin is a tank. They pass the ball well as well. Tate, their quarterback, is very solid. And then defensively, I think Jeff Tate's his name. And then defensively, they're great. So I think it's going to be a really good game. I want Buffalo to win. I like Buffalo as a school. But Ball State just looks maybe too tough to handle. Oklahoma, Houston, I think this is going to be Oklahoma through and through, just a bloodbath probably. The Sooners are so good. Houston does have a good scoring offense. They pass the ball really well. They do have Donation Lanu as well, former 5-star running back. He's incredible. But their defense is so bad. 102nd ranked defense against one of the top offenses, if not the top offense in the country in Oklahoma. Oklahoma's going to put up points, and they're going to win, I think, in this one. Western Kentucky, UTSA. UTSA number 11 in points per game this season, but they're taking on a Western Kentucky defense that's very good. Conversely, Western Kentucky offense is okay. UTSA defense hasn't been very good. So that's going to be an interesting dichotomy of those matchups there. We'll see who comes out on top. South Carolina, LSU. I mean, every single thing here says LSU's going to kill them. Plus 16 turnover differential. Number 6 defense by yardage in the country. Number 2 offense by yardage and scoring in the country. South Carolina's gotten to 10-2 by winning games that they, have been close in. They've won one-score matchups, but they don't have an outstanding defense. They don't have an outstanding offense. They have good ones, but they just don't do anything incredibly well. LSU, I think, is probably going to murder them. Boise State taking on Fresno. I like Boise in this one. I think they're just better across the board. I think you can see that in the statistics, and I would expect the Broncos to have a nice bounce-back season. They've not been great in this dynasty. I think they'll be good here. UCLA, this is one of those weird matchups where you say Washington has played way better than UCLA this season as far as statistics are concerned, but UCLA is probably the more talented team. They have Babineau, outside linebacker, who's unbelievable. We've seen their offense. We know they have some talented players. If Durbin, their quarterback, can put things together, I think UCLA can be really, really good. And this will make this game interesting. Washington's one of those teams, they have the momentum. UCLA has the skill. Can they just put it all together? I think that'll be a very interesting game to follow. And then Penn State, Nebraska, another one of these games where Penn State's been a team kind of like South Carolina, where they haven't been spectacular this season, but they've just done enough to win. The thing you note with Nebraska, their defense is incredible. Number one defense in the country, playing a Big Ten schedule. They're very, very good, but they don't turn the ball over a ton. -2 turnover differential. I think that's going to be interesting there, and that could be the difference, especially when you know that they have such good defense. Both teams are very good defensively. Both teams' offenses are solid, but they both like to run the football a lot, and so I think this could be a low-scoring affair, depending on how those teams come out and play call. And then, of course, the ACC championship game. Your Pitt Panthers taking on the number 3 Clemson Tigers. Clemson, we know the talent, the recruiting, how many fantastic players Dabo brings to the Tigers, and that shows in the way that they play. Number 1 passing offense. They can air it out. They are going to be missing their top receiver in this contest, though. They can still score at will. They can run the football down your throat. Their defense is very solid and filled with playmakers. We're very good, though, as well. 2 top 5 offenses in this one, and 2 top, quarter of the nation defenses as far as yardage is concerned. So I think both teams are going to have their say in this contest offensively. I think it could kind of resemble what we've seen the last couple of weeks. I think we could see a lot of scoring, and I think it could come down to a 1-possession battle. But looking at Clemson here, incredibly, they lost their second game of the year in pretty convincing fashion to Oklahoma State, and since that matchup, they've played one one-score matchup. They beat Florida State 41-34 in October. Otherwise, they have mauled everyone on their schedule. Wake, Syracuse, Boston College, North Carolina, who was ranked very highly at the time, NC State, even South Carolina, they've destroyed. Okay, they have absolutely obliterated the competition since that loss to Oklahoma State. They're riding a high. They beat rival South Carolina. Clemson is a very, very dangerous team, and they've shown they can do it even with 2 quarterbacks in. Remember, Kurt Lyles, their backup, came in and got them a victory earlier in the season. He's played a decent amount. Alford, though, has been incredible. 35 TDs, 3 INTs, one of the leading passers in the country. I think he might even be top, if not second, in passer rating. And then they have a running back that's run for over 1,450 yards on the season. He's going for 120 a game. The only bonus we have is they are going to be missing their leading receiver. For the Panthers, of course, we're no slouches. CJ Kirk, 28 TDs. He's actually got more passing yards than Alford on the season, but he hasn't been hurt. Alford's missed a little bit of time for that. Davion Reynolds is over 1,100 yards as well. Sino Rogers over 1,000 receiving. It's been a very, very good season for the Panthers, and I think it's going to lead to fireworks here in the ACC championship game. But look at this Clemson team. I mean, the full page was covered with 90 overall players. And then, you go through over half their roster before you even get to guys that are below 80. They're incredible. The depth they have, the youth they have is something to watch as well. Will Alford, in any other year, he could be the number 1 quarterback taken. This year, he's probably 3rd, 4th, 5th maybe. I could see him coming back next season to be the number 1 quarterback in the NFL draft. The guy's incredible. Kurt Lyles right behind him. He's probably not ready to start just yet. Only 79 overall. Even next year, I don't know that they'll want him as their starter. So Alford, I would expect him to probably come back for his senior year, potentially to improve his draft stock. But he's been incredible. Andrew Hunter, this guy doesn't need to improve anything. He is going to be going to the NFL next year. He's fantastic. He's a really talented player. George Gates is a very good backup as well. He'll probably be leading their offense next year. Nicholas Walker behind him. They do have a speedster in Stephen Guillory, true freshman as well, somebody to watch out for. So a very talented team here, but Hunter has been incredible. Ran for 182 against South Carolina in their last game. Adam Chandler, though, former 5-star recruit. We recruited him heavily. We were in his final 2 many seasons ago, and he chose Clemson over us. He's incredible, but luckily for us, he won't be playing in this game, which is incredibly lucky because we're missing our top corner as well. So that'll make the matchup very interesting. Craig Petty will end up becoming the de facto number 1 for Clemson, but you got a true freshman in J.R. Castillo, who's going to get more playing time. Brian Harris, very talented, very quick. Eric West Jr. So you'll see some of these other supporting cast members of the Clemson receivers definitely play a factor here with Chandler out of the lineup. And they do have some solid tight ends as well. Deion Thomas Jr., freshman, very, very young, very raw, very talented. Braden Gibson, the senior, solid as well. And then on the offensive line, the thing to note with them, they don't have any seniors. Junior, 89. Junior, 89. They do have a senior center. He's actually probably the weak link on their line at 80 overall. 81 overall sophomore at right guard. And then at right tackle, 87 overall sophomore. So they're going to have 4 pieces coming back next year that might all be 90 or better on the offensive line. And then defensively, Matt Townsend, monster. Not had his best season last year. I think he had 13 or so sacks, if I remember correctly. Only at 4.5 this year, but that's because of the talent they have. Casey White, true freshman behind him. This guy's going to be 90 overall starting as a sophomore next year. And at right end, they have a 91 overall true freshman who has 8.5 sacks this season in Kayshawn Anderson. He was, I think, the number 1 recruit last season, if I remember. If not, he was top 3 in last season's class. The guy's incredible. 91 overall, went to Clemson and is dominating. Nicholas Foster behind him. The guy's going to be a 90 overall senior next year and might not even be starting on their defensive line. So they're incredible in that regard. And then wait till you see their DTs. True freshman, Quentin Bryant. 91 overall. The guy is a monster. He just clogs up the line. Fantastic player. Another guy to watch out for. Varnon Cross teams up with him, as does Drek Thomas. Some really talented players. You're going to have Drek Thomas and Quentin Bryant next year. They're going to be 95 overall each. I mean, Clemson might be better next year than they are this year, and they're 11-1 this year. True freshman, starting middle linebacker, Tyler Christian. Another guy we recruited. We were in his final 3, and we missed out on him as well. Chad Carlson. Don't think he's related to Calvin Carlson, who we had, who's in the NFL now, but another really talented player. But Tyler Christian's a beast. True freshman, 84 overall. The guy's going to be 90 next season as a sophomore. Nick Sanders, an outside linebacker, and Kyle Dodd. Dodd's been incredible. 7.5 sacks. He plays well above his ratings. Ton of tackles, couple picks, bunch of passes defended. Decent speed for an outside linebacker. That's maybe their one weakness, is their linebacking core, just because they're not 90 pluses. You know, they have Nathan Scott, Willie McNamara, Dan McIntyre, Gerald Davis. All these 80 plus. Antonio Key II, the guy's their 5th corner, and he's 82 overall as a true freshman. I mean, they're incredible. The amount of depth that this Clemson team has. Nathan Scott's even a junior. He might be back next season, which would be crazy. Jalen Lindsey, sophomore. Down year for him. He started as a freshman. 94 overall. He's a sophomore. Robert Hearn plays all over the field for them because of the depth they have at safety. He plays a ton, can move around, plays outside linebacker. He plays in the corner positions, nickel corner, dime corner. Still plays at safety because they have Andre Henry Jr. as well, another sophomore who's 83 overall with decent speed, covering in that strong safety position. He plays down near the line of scrimmage as well. Freshmen, they're 81 overall. I mean, the depth on this Clemson team is absolutely disgusting. I could see some of these guys transferring, to be honest, because they have so many youngsters that they may lose a couple to the portal, but even then, it doesn't even matter because of how good this team is. I mean, you look at some of their stats here. We just go through and flick through quickly. Kurt Lyles has played. He's been solid. The big thing, like I said, that they're going to be missing is going to be Adam Chandler. 57 receptions, over 1,000 yards on the season, 12 touchdowns. The one thing to note, though, interestingly, Braden Gibson, 13 touchdowns for the tight end this year, only 46 grabs. One out of it, basically every 3.5 catches for him goes for a touchdown, which is pretty crazy. So another guy to watch out for, especially when a lot of teams, to take advantage of our linebackers that aren't the best in coverage, do use slot receivers and tight ends a lot when we play them, because our outside corners, Scott Whaley, Damian Vector, who of course will be missing, Brian Youngling, are very, very talented, and so they try to take advantage of us on the inside. But it's going to be an incredible matchup. I can't wait to see it. I hope you guys are excited. Let me know in the comments Who you think is going to come out victorious in conference championship week? Pitt or Clemson? How do you think the rest of the four will shake out in the college football playoff with some of the results that are going to come into play here? You know, Penn State, Oklahoma, some of those teams with huge games. Does Cincinnati have a chance to get back into the mix? Let me know in the comments. As always, we'll see you soon. Take care. Hail to Pitt. Take care. Bye-bye.